Hollywood is indelibly printed in our minds as the go-to place for entertainment, and has been for decades. When there really did seem to be more stars in Hollywood than in heaven, Hollywood Stage had them performing films as radio plays, on the sponsor's dime, of course. The Hollywood ringmaster himself, Cecil B. DeMille, unveils the treasures and the stars for you, right here.
The Lux Radio Theater brings you Greer Garson, Walter Pidgeon, and Susan Peters in Mrs. Miniver with Ensign Henry Wilcoxon. Ladies and gentlemen, your producer, Mr. Cecil B. DeMille.
Greetings from Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. When everyone in Hollywood agrees on anything, that's news. And you can't get an argument out of anyone in our town when you say that Mrs. Miniver was one of the great pictures of film history. Like a beacon in the night, it brought guidance and inspiration when we needed it most. That's as fine a service as any motion picture can render. And Hollywood recognized that service by making Mrs. Miniver an overwhelming choice for the last Academy Award. We're no longer the underdogs of this war, but Mrs. Miniver belongs to any time and to all times. Tonight, we present it with the same two stars who gave such magnificent performances in the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer picture, Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon. And with them, we have Susan Peters, brilliant young dramatic star, and Ensign Henry Wilcoxon of the United States Coast Guard. We all know that Greer Garson won the Academy Award for her performance as Mrs. Miniver, but that performance and all the others never seemed like acting to me. Only fine artists can lift a drama to so high a plane. And very soon we'll have a chance to see Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon together again in their new Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer picture, which some critics have already nominated for this year's Academy Award, Madame Curie. We borrowed Susan Peters from the same studio where she's just finished Song of Russia. One thing more that Hollywood agrees about is that tonight's team of stars is one of the happiest combinations we've ever had. For 9 years now, stars like these have helped to make the Lux Radio Theater a national theater, and Lux Flakes has made it possible for us to present them in the big dramatic hits of Broadway and Hollywood. You don't have to buy anything to get a seat in this theater, because there's no one collecting tickets in your living room. But the chances are you'd buy our product anyway once you've tried it. That's all we ask. Lux Flakes doesn't need a salesman. It just needs a few minutes to show what it can do. So right now, we can raise the curtain on the first act, starring Greer Garson as Mrs. Miniver, Walter Pidgeon as Clem, and Susan Peters as Carol, with Ensign Henry Wilcoxon as the vicar. In the summer of 1939, the world stood trembling on the threshold of another war. Guns bristled on the borders between nations, and in the capitals of the continent, the mighty armor of conflict paraded in a rumbling show. From Berlin, the hysterical screams of a mad fanatic set the tone and tempo of the times. In that summer of 1939, England listened to the distant thunder, nodded thoughtfully, and went about the simple business of living.
We all knew there was going to be a war, of course. A dozen times a day we'd tell each other so. Oh, yes, no doubt of it at all. Feeling a bit pleased with ourselves that we could face it so calmly. And yet underneath, there was just as strong a conviction, half hope and half fear, that it could never happen. And so we went our careless way, bringing up our children, tending our gardens, making shopping trips to the city to buy hats that were much too expensive. I never should have bought that hat. I knew it on the train going back to Belem, but of course, it was too late then. I had it with me in a little box, a ridiculously little box.
Belem, sir? Yes, sir. This is for Belem.
Good evening, Mrs. Miniver.
Hi, Vicar. How nice.
For me it is. May I sit here, Mrs. Miniver?
Of course.
Shopping?
Here, let me put those packages on the rack for you.
Oh, thank you, Vicar. Oh, no, not the little one, please. I might leave it behind, as it's rather precious.
Yes, I know the feeling.
Do you?